When two of the high-end running shoe manufacturers release their top-line racing shoes, you know sparks will fly. Today I'm comparing the New Balance Fuelcell RC Elite versus the Adidas Adizero Adios Pro. Two very different takes on carbon plate implementation within a soft cushioned midsole. Which one's going to take the crown? Stay tuned to find out. Both of these shoes I own in a UK size 11.5, which equates to a US 12 in these models. The Adizero Adios Pro comes in at 275 grams, which is 9.7 ounces, and the RC Elite quite a bit lighter at 235 grams, which is 8.3 ounces, an 8.5mm drop from heel to toe in the Adidas shoe, and 10mm from heel to toe in the Fuelcell RC Elite. In a US size 9, which seems to be the size most retailers list on their websites, the Adidas comes in at 227 grams, which is about 8 ounces, and the RC Elite at 207 grams, or 7.3 ounces. We'll kick off the comparison with the upper first. I've got to say, both of these shoes have great uppers, very, very light, really barely present actually around your foot. Really don't notice them all that much, but there is one main winner in terms of upper for me, and that is the Adidas shoe. The Adizero Adios Pro has a fantastic upper. It's hugging to the foot with the minimum of extra material needed. There's not loads of excess stuff going on here. The booty construction's actually elasticated on one side, so it really does grip your foot in once you get it in there. It's a little bit of a struggle at first, but once it's there, it really is a fantastic fit. The multiple lacing eyelets here mean you can really lock in the fit, almost customize it really to your foot. In wet weather, it performed really well with the flexible yet structured cellar mesh material, proving to be a great vessel for the foot. The Fuelcell RC Elite upper is by no means a dud, a failure, a cotton-headed ninny muggins. Don't you just love Elf? What a great film. It's a little more snug in terms of length, certainly compared to its bigger and heavier brother, the Fuelcell TC. It is certainly a little more snug, and I need to use a slightly thinner sock with this shoe. It's okay though, we're going to let it off on that because it is a race shoe after all. No more, no less. Good lockdowns easily achieved in the RC, but water absorbency is quite apparent with this upper material. In the wet recently, the shoe did take on quite a bit of extra weight. Certainly in this area around the heel, seemed to be the cushioning and the padding there just seemed to soak up that water. So a really great upper on this one. But upper-wise, the Adidas Adizero Adios Pro is the winner. Very quickly, if you are enjoying the video today, please do hit that subscribe button and click the bell below for notifications of when we launch the new videos. And it does help the channel out a huge amount if you give this video a thumbs up like. Midsole now. The RC Elite out the box is really quite something. Like a sharp tailored suit, the midsole cushion makes you feel like $1 million. Or Earth credits. A squash and a push and the race is yours. It's absolutely not a shoe for just plodding around the cul-de-sac. Or I would suggest for people who overpronate. Could cause an issue or two for you, I think, this shoe. I think if you're a neutral runner though, you're good to go. It really is super lightweight, this one. I think that's really the major yes factor in this shoe. When people first got it, they were wondering just how light it was going to be. It's certainly comparable in terms of weight with the Vaporfly Next Percent. It's just such a nimble and pure type feel when running in this shoe. I mean, even the insole has little holes cut out of it to minimize the weight. The plate certainly is present there in terms of stability. I would suggest of all my miles in the shoe, I haven't found it perhaps as stable as the Adizero Adios Pro, though this one really for me is all about excitement. It's quite an invigorating experience running in it. I really think that the Adizero Adios Pro midsole improves the more and more you run in it. Some shoes seem to lose their wow factor, I suppose, after a few miles, but this one's getting better and better. It seems to open up a little bit, maybe after about 10 to 14 miles. The Light Strike Pro became a little more squashy, perhaps a little more forgiving and flexible too. Those rods that are in the midsole perplexed me a little bit to start with. Certainly in my early tests I was a little bit disgruntled and confused by this shoe, but that's drifted away. I think the rods actually come into play once you start to get above 7 minutes 20 per mile. That's around about 4 minutes 33 per kilometre. So for me that's just below threshold pace. As I get above that I'm just entering into threshold sort of zones. When I've used the RC Elite at tempo paces, so for me that's around about 7 minutes 30 per mile, just under maybe, so it's about 4:40 per kilometre. The RC Elite still feels really great. I don't think the Adizero Adios Pro is designed for that. It's a race shoe all out. With this, you could probably use it a little bit more as not a daily shoe, but one for your faster paced speed sessions when you're looking at doing some miles round about your race paces. So I think perhaps it's a little more of a versatile shoe than the Adidas model. I can't say I've really felt much of a weight difference between these two. Obviously most of what they're made up of is the midsole material. In hand, I guess, you can feel that this one's a little bit heavier. Those rods are adding some extra weight. I think in terms of cushion, if I was going to run a marathon, I'd probably reach for the Adizero Adios Pro. Though if I was going to do a half or anything below that, I think the RC Elite's probably the one I'd grab. Just a little more nimble, snappy, and I think it's down to that higher drop actually of 10mm. On midsole, if I had to choose one though, I think it would be the Fuelcell RC Elite. Outsole time. As I mentioned earlier about the midsole of the Adidas shoe, the outsole's actually getting better and better each time I wear it. Out of the box on this one, initially the outsole was as smooth as Fergus Basinski's posterior. But now the outsole rubber's taken on almost like a sandpaper-like feel. Grip's really great actually now on tarmac and paths. Don't think it's going to be one you could use on grass or anything like that. I know people often say, Ed, why did you talk about running on grass a lot? Well, over here in the UK there's lots of park runs and events which start or end or have sections that are on grass. And the last thing you want to be doing is slipping and sliding around in your super race shoes. You look like a bit of a fool. In wet conditions, the outsole traction's improved greatly in the Adidas shoe, but in today's comparison, we're up against the Fuelcell RC Elite, which has one of the best outsoles of the year thus far. It's got these small segments and protrusions of rubber here, which form that Dynaride setup. The small, almost AstroTurf or artificial grass cleats that look something like off a soccer or football boot. I say soccer because everybody knows what soccer is in the US, and I do have quite a considerable number of viewers from the US. Obviously over in Europe and probably the rest of the world we know it as football. So just to clear that up. I know HITC 7s has that problem all the time, so I just want to make it very clear. I normally call it football, but I know lots of you call it soccer. These things work superbly in both wet and dry conditions though. That really hurt. I found them to be super durable as well, although you've got to watch out for the occasional stowaway. No comparison here though. Big improvement in the Adidas Adizero Adios Pro outsole over time, but the winner for outsole on this comparison has got to be the New Balance shoe. Got to talk value now. There's some significant wallet pain here. Earth credit, inflation, and significant other upsetting levels of cash. The AAP, as I'm going to call it from now on, is a little cheaper at retail at £169. Earth credits. Which is probably going to be a more attractive price to many. It's still a very high price. I've got to be honest, I grabbed this one very quickly once I saw it was on sale and used my running club discount, so the price was a little easier to swallow. Especially when you compare it up against something like the Nike Tempo Next Percent, which retails at £169 here in the UK. So I think it makes actually pretty good value for a race shoe. Top end one at that. Is it worth the £40 extra on top of that £169 for the RC Elite? I think I'll probably put a few people off buying this shoe in fairness. I've got to say it's going to be way more durable than the 4% Flyknit. That shoe just seemed to disintegrate under people's feet. I never had that much of a problem with it, but I wouldn't suggest it was a durable shoe in any way. I guess you've only got another £30 on top of the price of this one, and then you get a Vaporfly Next Percent, so I think you've got to think very carefully as to whether you go down the Nike route or this one. They're certainly the closest in terms of underfoot feel. I think for me this is closest to an improved version of the Vaporfly 4%. That is one of my favourite shoes still to this day. The Gyakuso version of that shoe is mind-numbingly good. I think it's more durable with a very similar weight to the Next Percent at a slightly cheaper price. So when you look at it from that aspect, go for this one. I think against the Adidas shoe in this comparison, the RC is a much more versatile shoe, but at a more considerable cost obviously, and I think very few people will look to use this shoe for anything other than racing if they purchase it. and very few of us have any events such as those in the pipeline in the near future. So as it stands, I think the Adidas shoe actually takes the crown for value. It's certainly a very attractive package. You got a slightly better cost and of course the interesting technical implementation. Certainly pushing some boundaries. This certainly isn't
a sticker carbon plate in with our softest foam
type shoe. It's a very refreshing approach that Adidas have taken this time around. So there's my comparison. Hope you've enjoyed that one today, guys. What are your experiences in either of these super shoes? Let me know down in the comments. A film recommendation today. I must have watched it hundreds of times, but I really love the Joaquin Phoenix and Reese Witherspoon film Walk the Line. I'm a big Johnny Cash fan, and initially I was a little bit worried whether I'd really like this film, but on the first viewing I was hooked within a few minutes. The vocal performances from Joaquin Phoenix and Reese Witherspoon are absolutely superb throughout the film, and the music's all top notch as well. I believe T-Bone Burnett was involved in producing a lot of the music within the film. Really has a great 50s feel, really does make you feel like you're there in certain moments, and some great acting. Really enjoyable film. So if you're a fan of the Man in Black, Johnny Cash, do go and check that one out. Walk the Line. Right, that's about all for me for today, guys. I do appreciate you tuning in and sticking with me to the very end. If you haven't done so already, please do hit the subscribe button and click the bell below for notifications of when we launch the new videos. It helps the channel out a huge amount if you give this video a thumbs up like, and also share it with your running buddies. My name's EDDBUD, and I'll be seeing you